I am an enormous fan of The Division 2. In fact, we gave the game the best RPG of 2019 in our Rocket and Ray Gun Awards, so I was very excited when Ubisoft offered to send me a code for their new expansion. It's called Warlords of New York, and takes us back to New York City, where the Division franchise first began. Really enjoyed Division 1. I love The Division 2, and this, embellishes and tweaks and adds to it. It maybe doesn't kind of shake it all up and revolutionize it as much as some people may want, but I just loved going back into this world. What you're doing in this new expansion is you're hunting down an agent that has betrayed the Division named Aaron Keener, who was a part of the first game.
Aaron Keener. Status: Rogue.
He, of course, has a bunch of cronies, so it's a bunch of like mini bosses or sub bosses, and then you got to go after the big boss. And what's cool about this expansion is that every time you take out one of these mini bosses, you gain new abilities and new weaponry. The sticky bomb has returned back to the game, and it is incredible to have that in your arsenal. Just loved using it because I was able to pinpoint on some of the more heavily armored bad guys out there and shoot a sticky bomb and then detonate it whenever I wanted to. And you could also do cool things like shoot the sticky bomb into groups and watch them all explode together. There's a lot of that. I love how badass I feel. I love how smart I feel as I tackle the objectives and take out the bad guys, because all of them have different skills and different abilities. One of them creates kind of like a hologram decoy. There's a boss fight which is kind of cool, where you've got all of these decoys popping up on all of these different outposts looking in at you. You feel like the fish within the barrel, but you can shoot out at all of these different decoys, and you got to find the right one. This is an RPG that definitely is about, stat tracking and leveling up, and they've increased the level cap to 40 for the new expansion, and it all trickles down to the entirety of the Division 2 as well once you pick up this expansion, or if you buy it all bundled together for, I think, less than the price of what the Division 2 launched. It's a ton of content, but there have been lots of enhancements to the UI. It's much easier to kind of track the weaponry, the damage statistics, and what is the best weaponry for you, and there are new skill sets and things that you can unlock, like the ability to send out a shock bomb, which will, zap everybody. You can augment and modify your weaponry with a bunch of new mods as well in here. Conflict is the multiplayer portion of it, and I played some of that, totally got my ass kicked. So there is definitely, even though it is more of a tactical kind of experience, there are people with incredible skill that will completely school you in better techniques and better, maneuverability and better skills for being able to devastate you with their ability, but also with the weaponry that they've picked up. And it was fun to jump in there, but the core kind of driving through the story and defeating the enemies and defeating the bosses and unlocking the camps and saving the hostages and collecting the loot and bringing them back to all of the outposts and stuff. I love all that. You don't get the whole Manhattan Island to explore, you get sort of the bottom chunk of it. It is even more decrepit and broken, and things are falling apart, and it looks like utter devastation has befallen it. It's also all to scale, just like the Washington, D.C. experience was. So when you're walking around in the streets of New York in this game, it is kind of one-to-one with the way that the city is, which blows my mind. And of course, New York is filled with lots of verticality, so you go into buildings and explore them. Quarantined buildings that look absolutely devastated, which is really surreal to be thinking about and talking about in this sort of coronavirus kind of fears that we're all having right now. You're walking through this devastated civilization. It's creepy. You go into skyscrapers, but you also go into the sewers, and you also go into the subway systems. You go into a giant crashed tanker ship and, maneuver through that and through all the devastation that it has caused as it crashed into the shoreline in New York City. You go into an old abandoned prison and just, cruising around through the streets and seeing the dogs running for their lives and seeing the little kitties running around inside of the safe houses that you unlock. You, of course, meet new characters, new cast members in the Division franchise, but they're not quite as memorable. It doesn't feel like the story, apart from the boss conversations and the chatter that you feel around the bosses and the little sort of cut sequences around encountering the major enemies in the game, it doesn't really feel like there has been as much effort put into the narrative with the good guys.
Sorry. It's not your fault. This peace was hard won, and now we've lost it. We're going to get him. We have to.
There is such an incredible addictive loop with this game, and the thing that you have to reconcile is that it's not a tactile shooter like Destiny. You know, it's got that looter shooter kind of hook and that vibe of, you know, giving yourself new outfits and new weapons and collecting all kinds of great loot and constantly finding ways to power yourself up. You can see it all on your character, which I think is a really profound element of this game. You're in third-person mode all the time, so you can see exactly the visual sort of benefits from your upgrades, which is great. And the animation trees and all that stuff with the characters as they're rolling and flipping and climbing and shooting and chucking and diving and getting killed and zapped. All of that stuff is really, really tuned and cool. But this isn't a one-to-one shooter where it feels like you shoot somebody in the head and, of course, they're going to drop like you're playing Call of Duty or something like that, or Destiny for that matter. So you have to kind of wrap your head around that, and I think that's been a little off-putting for a lot of people, you know, coming from other shooters and coming into the Division franchise in general. But I love that it is more of a tactical shooter, and for my money, it's one of the most satisfying Tom Clancy experiences because it kind of melds a lot of what I loved about SOCOM and that terrific franchise from Sony, and also a lot of the Ghost Recon work, a little bit of the Rainbow Six work. I certainly feel echoes of Sam Fisher and Splinter Cell as I'm playing the Division. I like this dystopian lore that they've crafted. It just feels so authentic and so tuned and so labored over and so made with so much passion, you know? And it's so evident as I'm cruising through. There's something about this franchise that just compels me to stay with it a lot more than a lot of the other kind of hooky looter shooter type of experiences like Borderlands and The Division, which I also really enjoy, but there's something really special about The Division.
You're doing really great. Keep at it.
There have been so many improvements with first The Division 2 and now these new enhancements with Warlords of New York. It's just crazy fun. Like, you know, I can talk about all of the features and all of the quality of life stuff that the developers are always kind of tweaking and taking all that analytical data in and sort of trying to improve and impress people with. And all of that stuff is great. It's great gravy. But the core kind of attraction for me and the compulsion that I get, the addiction that I have with this game, none of those words actually sound all that great because you want to be able to turn games off. But it's hard to turn this game off because it's crazy, crazy fun. I really love this game. And the one kind of quibble that I would give towards The Division in general, and that definitely persists with Warlords of New York and The Division 2, is the fact that it's an always online experience, and so you have to complete your missions before you can quit your game, otherwise you'll have to do the whole thing over again. And sometimes these missions can go on for a very, very long time, and you'll be like 3/4 of the way through, and you've snaked in to the bad guy's headquarters, and you've taken out all kinds of people, and you're just about to go fight the boss, and then real life happens, and it's like, I gotta quit out, and I gotta do all that again. And it's kind of a drag, and I wish Julian Garrity, who is the creative director on the Division franchise, tweeted out a while ago saying, are people interested in a single-player, story-driven Division experience? And I, for one, definitely would be. I think there's so much fantastic lore and so much work put into the mythology around the Division already that it would be great to sort of tangent out and let people sort of, nibble at a game, at a single-player game, and be able to save anywhere along the way. This game is definitely, just like the Division has always been, definitely kind of driving you towards sharing it and being cooperative and then competitive and play it in a bunch of different ways with your friends. It's supposed to be kind of an answer to what Bungie has done with Destiny. And I don't know if it's as successful, but for my money, this is just hella fun. I just love it.
Where the hell did you come from? Goddamn turret!
This DLC, I think, is essential if you also love this franchise, but I have to say, if you haven't given The Division a shot yet, you're missing out. Yeah, I think you should, and I think you're going to have a great time with it. I'm going to give Warlords of New York a 9 out of 10.